welcome to the official YouTube channel for me, the Colin Cowherd Podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button right there so you don't miss any of our football content this postseason. Going to have instant reactions after every big game. Thanks. So, it's interesting. When I worked at the other place, I was there for the New England dynasty, a big chunk of it in the 11 years. And it was great. My friends were all either New York Giant fans or Patriot fans. And I never thought the Patriots were the most talented team, although I did think the Randy Moss years were damn good.
Yeah.
But I thought I heard a lot of this stuff about officiating. And I was always like, oh, shit. I did think the Bills got a first down, but there were 13 minutes left, and I don't care. I'm kind of a believer, and I've said this, I think, to you and others. When people used to complain about Jordan getting all the calls of the Warriors, I would always say this: how many turnovers did you have, and how many free throws did you miss? If the answer combined is 20, I don't care about that go either way call in the fourth quarter, right? Like you had 11 turnovers and missed 9 free throws. I'm not going to listen to you. I thought Buffalo was incredibly lucky. They fumbled 4 times and recovered all of them. I've never heard of that in a playoff game in my life.
No, Colin, there were 5 fumbles in the game because Mahomes fumbled, and Buffalo recovered all 5. As far as back as the record books go, first playoff team ever to do that and lose. Like, it's very hard to go 5 for 5 on fumble recoveries and not win the game. They got very fortunate on that.
Yeah. My take on the entire game was very much like Matt Hasselbeck. Matt Hasselbeck and I, and Drew Brees and I, agreed that Sean McDermott acknowledged after the game, on the 4th and 1 stuff, we just kind of let Josh, and we just kind of figured Josh, we're going to kind of let him do it. And I'm like, Andy Reid has never once said, I'm just going to let Mahomes kind of do it. And I've been on this now since you've known me at FS1 for 8 years. I think offensive coaches are better with star quarterbacks than defensive coaches.
Sure.
And I think one of the things I've said about Brady is where Brady really deserves credit. He won with Arians. He won with Belichick, Charlie Weiss. He won with like 6 different people. Because remember, Bill didn't really run the offense. It was whoever the coordinator was. Is that I do think, and this is not a shot at Mahomes, all of us in life, some kids grow up with really doting rich parents and supportive parents, and some kids grow up in chaos, is Mahomes would be successful regardless. But do you think it's crazy to consider that if Mahomes and Allen switch coaches, that Allen would have more Super Bowls today than Mahomes?
Oh, yes. I do think that's crazy. I don't think he would have more Super Bowls than Mahomes. And I think that, listen, I think Patrick is going to go down as a Mount Rushmore athlete, not football player, athlete.
I think you're right.
And I think that he has a special, innate ability that right now no other quarterback the people have been beaten over the head with the Mahomes stats, but some of them are just like impossible to believe. So he already now has more playoff victories when his defense allows 29 points than any quarterback in NFL history. So he has 4. He has won 4 playoff games when his defense allowed 29 points. That's Tom did it, I think. Peyton did it, I think, 3 times, and Tom did it once, or I have it vice versa. But no one's done that. That Patrick has played 20, and then I'm going to get to the Josh Allen piece of this. Patrick has played 20 playoff games, okay? 11 of them were what I would call easy wins. They were leading in the fourth quarter, led the whole way. The 9 games, Colin, that he trailed in the fourth quarter, 6 of them he won. 1 of them he forced overtime against New England, never touched the ball. Another one, he forced overtime against Cincinnati, did not come through and lost. And the other one, they were down 31-9 against the Bucs entering the fourth. So again, And to put a little finer point on that, in his playoff career, in the fourth quarter trailing by one score, he has had 14 possessions. They have tied or taken the lead 13 times. And the one time he didn't, he then got the ball back and did it. So
do you
we've
believe
never
though that Andy Reid is a
Oh,
prominent part of that?
100%. Absolutely. But I also believe the knock on Andy before Patrick came into his life was brilliant play designer, but in these exact moments I'm describing, gets tight and messes up the clock or situationally isn't buttoned up. That's how you lose a 28-point lead to the Colts with Alex Smith. That's how you lose in the playoffs, an 18-point lead to Marcus Mariota. Andy was the Chiefs coach when those things happened. So I think it's the perfect marriage. I think Andy is the perfect preparer of offense and plays and all of it. And Patrick is the steadiest hand in the world. And so to me, it's like the most brilliant medical school professor pairing up with the most naturally gifted surgeon ever. Like, he is going to give you all of the tools, and then you're going to, be the one with the steady hand going to do it. So that part is, and I think Josh is excellent. I also think that Josh had the ball with 3.5 minutes left, down 3, and got 17 yards and 0 points. And that's a year after getting the ball back with 6 minutes left, down 3, and got 40 yards and 0 points. Like, that's not Patrick. That's not Andy. That's in those moments. The 4th and 5 play, Josh was excellent. First down, second down, he was not, which set up the 3rd and 10, which set up the 4th and 5. Here is the thing I want to say about the sneaks, Colin. And this is where I'm surprised more contending teams don't take a page out of the Chiefs' notebook. Why at some point during the year didn't the Bills say internally, okay, guys, I think we pretty much well know how to run this snake. Can we work on a couple other short yardage things?
Thank you.
A, teams have to prepare for other things.
Yeah.
And B, even though we've been basically undefeated on it, if somebody has a wrinkle that can stop it, we have a pivot point. Instead, they just ran the same thing all year because it was so successful. And that should be the lesson of the Chiefs. The Chiefs, early in the year, people are like, oh, Kelsey's washed. And it's like, okay, he's obviously slowing down. But is it that he's washed, or is it that they are saying, hey, it hasn't happened in years, but what if someone in a playoff game takes him away? Let's make sure Xavier Worthy's ready. Let's make sure everybody else is ready. And then in the AFC Championship game, he has his worst game in 5 years in the playoffs, and other guys step up. If you're contending for a championship, sometimes preparing to win the title is not the same as making sure every single possession of my week 7 game against the Jets is at the highest EPA. And that's where the Chiefs have been brilliant. And that's where the Bills, I think, have not been.
Well,
Welcome back to the Richard Sherman Podcast, presented by our friends and partners over at Breitling, the premier luxury watch brand out of Switzerland. This year is their 140th anniversary. I'm so excited. Got the watch. Got to do the Shador Sanders. You know what I mean?
I got my Honolulu blue and silver Detroit Lion Breitling on. I know Richard's got a San Francisco 49ers one on.
Players in Primetime is brought to you by our partners at Breitling. This week, it's, of course, Saquon Barkley, who shined in his Eagles debut. If you got any sponsors, well, I know you got Breitling. You got Breitling. You got that Honolulu blue Breitling, I heard. And to be with such a prestigious luxury watch brand, I'm thrilled. Visit Breitling.com or check out a local authorized dealer to cop you a timepiece of your own.
Yeah, and I think to defend Josh here, because I think he's all-time stuff, I don't think fans understand this. If you watched, I'm not going to give away where I heard this, but it comes from a good source. Belichick can't even speak offensive football. Like defensive coaches, they don't really understand offensive football. That's not what they do. And one of the things I've always pointed to, and I think I'm the only guy talking about this regularly, pat myself in the back, have you noticed how offensive coaches can rearrange the deck chairs with an offensive line within an off season and fix it? Andy's done it twice. McVay's done it 2 to 3 times.
During the season. Move Joe
McVay's
Tooney
done
to
it
left tackle
multiple times.
Yeah.
This year, they were terrible in the first 5 weeks. By the end of the year, Stafford never got touched.
Yep.
Defensive coaches can't do that. Tomlin's on 7 straight years of bad O-lines. I mean, Jeff Schwartz showed during the playoff loss, the Steelers' offensive line mayhem. They didn't know where they were going. I mean, they were literally often pulling to the wrong place. Offensive coaches speak the language of offense, and the league has pivoted to reward them. It's almost like if Trump, when Trump goes out and says, hey, I am pro, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. I am pro cryptocurrency. Well, that benefits people in the industry. Like the NFL's basically said over the last 10 years, we're going to go offense. We're going to literally change the game. And so there's a big chunk of these defensive coaches, they don't speak it. They don't speak it. They don't understand the language. And what you're asking, which is why wouldn't they create a second play? Well, that's not their natural instinct. That's not who they are. Andy Reid in the offseason will send me plays he's working on that he found on YouTube from Rose Bowls in the 40s. Like, sure. Hey, I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to use this. Don't share this. Look at this play. That's not what defensive coaches do. And I think it's just an innate advantage.
So what do you think they should do? Because the thing is, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. And I also, it's like, but there isn't the proven excellent offensive coach available. Yeah. B, Belichick took the Carolina job. So it's not like, hey, let's just get better situationally. And, even if it's short term, he's beaten Andy, he's beaten Patrick. Yeah. And I understand the folks who are like, man, if it's been this long, you haven't broken through against this team, even if McDermott's an excellent coach, sometimes what happens to Mark Jackson to elevate to Steve Kerr, as Brew talks about, needs to happen. I get all that. But can you take the risk of this part of Josh Allen's prime of we're handing the reins over to a first-time unknown head coach because he's an offensive guy?
Yeah, no, I think so was Sean McVay, and so was Matt LaFleur.
Right, but was all the guys who failed. Like, you know what I go ahead.
No, Sean McDermott, I think my comp has always been Chuck Knox. This is my age, but Chuck Knox was known as an organizer, highly competent, B-plus coach, Seahawks, Bills. If you were a shit show, he got you on the right path. But he was called Ground Chuck because the playoffs would come, and like Marty Schottenheimer, he got hyper-conservative. And I just think that's your fate in life, is that sometimes, Nick, let's just take our business, for instance, is that some people in my age don't do social media. I think it's a huge disadvantage. I do a ton of social media. I've got a TikTok clip on Bronny today that'll get 3 million people. I feed into it. I'm into it. I love it. Not everybody 60 plus with gray hair is into all these social media platforms. The world we're in has changed. TV doesn't drive all the business. I'm comfortable with it. There are other things in other industries people aren't comfortable with. The NFL's culture has changed. It's all offense. And so a lot of these defensive coaches, they're beholden to hiring the right OC. And the minute, Josh McDaniels and Brady leaves, Belichick's screwed. There's nothing he can do. He doesn't know what he's doing. And so I think it's just like anything else. This is something I think about all the time in broadcasting. I'm watching the culture. I'm not worried about me being good or you after me being good. I'm not worried about my staff. What I'm constantly worried about in the volume is, where's the culture going? Where is it going? I want to be ahead of where the culture is changing. I know my people are talented. So that's the stuff I lose sleep over. Offensive coaches have been given the baton by the league. And defensive coaches now are trapped. They're totally beholden to hiring the right OC, and they know if he's any good in 2 years, he gets a head job. So it is really a disadvantage to be. I feel bad for Sean McDermott. What is he on his third or fourth OC?
Well, right. You had Dable, you had Dorsey, and now you have Brady.
You're on your third.
And so you're on your third. No, the
And each one's a different language. I mean,
Yeah.
with Andy, he's always got the system.
Correct. And well, listen, the Chiefs are the dream scenario is brilliant offensive head coach paired with brilliant defensive coordinator
Yep.
who the whole league has just decided can't be a head coach. And then
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, we lose.
But for
Go
the
ahead.
record, this is why what Ben Johnson did in Chicago is great. Dennis Allen's not getting a head job. He has,
I totally agree with that. That's
And-
exactly right. That could be
and-
his Spagnuolo. Exactly right.
and he hired a 28-year-old OC that nobody's going to hire for 4 years until he's 32. So basically, Ben, I thought this was the smartest move of all the
I
coaches. Ben
totally
Johnson
agree with
hired 2 assistants, will not leave for 4 years. He got
Well-
and that organization's been all movement and chaos.
And also, a similar thing might happen for Vrabel because I don't know who's giving Josh McDaniels his next opportunity, but it'll be
And
a
he had-
long time.
He never sold his house there either.
Right. And so with like McDaniels, he got the Broncos job. That didn't work. He walked out on the Colts. He got the Raiders job. That didn't work. So if you're Vrabel and you're like, okay, Drake May's the future, I don't want Drake May to have this rotating offensive coordinator situation. Josh McDaniels is perfect because he's probably doesn't get another head coaching job. And if he does, it's in like 5, 6, 7 years.
That's right.
It's one of the sneaky, I don't want to make Commanders fans feel worse today, but semi concerns for Jaden is, well, you definitely want Jaden to be awesome again, right? Okay,
Right.
sure. If he's awesome again next year, Cliff Kingsbury's getting another job. It's just, he just is. You know what I mean? Like the only way Cliff Kingsbury, this sounds so shitty, but the only way Cliff Kingsbury doesn't leave Jaden Daniels in a year is if next year goes terribly. So that is the curse of the defensive head coach, is you're gonna have to worry about that. CJ with D'Amico, amazing as a rookie. People are worried, oh man, Bobby Slowick's going to get a head coaching job. Then this year Slowick's bad, they get rid of him. Either way, that turnover. So yeah, that's why I thought, as much as I respect Vrabel and think he's an excellent coach, for Caleb's sake, I wanted them to hire Ben Johnson because the hope is he is hearing this offensive language for the next decade. And that's the only way you can guarantee that is an offensive coach.
All right, Fubo is my favorite way to watch sports live. For those listening to me, yes, this is an ad, but it's the truth. NFL, NBA, baseball, movies, TV shows. I'm on Fubo constantly. When I'm flying to and from places, I am on Fubo constantly. Over 200 live channels, shows, movies, news. This is my go-to app. Little orange app. It's my favorite app. NFL, college sports, incredible base plan for sports fans. If you're on a plane and you're flying, a lot of these new planes now, they don't have televisions. I fly American a lot of times, and I sit near the front, not next to the pilots, but I got good seats. They don't have televisions. I need Fubo. Okay, so let me throw this out there. I'm going to give you let's both think of something where we were the most wrong we've been all football season. So I'll give you what it is and why it is, and I'll let you think. So this is how I think. I think it matters. I want my quarterback to have a little artist, but mostly be an accountant. I want you to have kind of Matt Ryan, Jalen Hurts personality, Justin Herbert. Stand up there, talk about the team, put out fires, be in line. Brady's as good as anybody. For as big a star as Mahomes is, he really always just says nice things. He's figured out
my buddy, my former intern, sorry to interrupt, in Kansas City, and who I'm sure hates that I always call my former intern because he's now the afternoon drive host on 610 in Kansas City and has been for a long time. He has a weekly interview with Patrick Mahomes and has had it for years. And God bless Carrington Harrison, who does a great job. That poor guy never, ever gets any news out of it because Patrick says nothing. He's had a weekly exclusive interview with Patrick Mahomes for 5 years. And have you ever played one clip of it on your show? The answer is probably not, because Patrick is just so trained to say nothing. Just say absolutely nothing. But go ahead.
So, and that's how I like my quarterbacks. I've said this: Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, Jameis Winston, Cam Newton. If I see ego, if I see self-importance, if I see Jay Cutler grumpiness, I just do not like it. And I think I've overwhelmingly been right. So I watched Nick Sirianni's opening press conference. It's the worst I've ever seen. He's terrible at the podium. He wore a jersey at the last time after last win. He's yelled at fans. He's gone after players, and he's had position coaches hold him back. His methodology stinks. And yet, they love him. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is the exact opposite of what I want my coach to be. So I've come to try to figure it out. And I went and watched in Chicago. I went and watched the comedian Sebastian Maniscalco. Very, very funny guy. Great performer. He reminds me a lot of Chris Rock. He's like Ali in his prime. I mean, he's got the look, the physicality. He's really a performer. Very funny. And a lot of his act is his Italian family and how dysfunctional and how they yell at each other. And the love is so deep and embedded in the family. And I've learned this. Cultures are different. There are couples that argue, that yell at each other. And I'm like, oh, this isn't going to work. And they've been married 37 years. And I imagine the makeup sex is great. Like, they just get along. It just works. And I've come to terms with Sirianni is that in a highly emotional city with a highly intense GM and fan base and radio media that's just barking and he just fits. He is the family member. He can handle the BS. He can handle the noise. He sometimes he's half fan. I just thought he's very dependent on coordinators.
Here's the thing, man. Everything you're saying is fair. I still can't get there with him. Like, everything you're saying is true. Here's what's also true. Had they blocked Jalen Carter, they being the Rams, on that third down in round 2, I think it's possible he was fired 10 days ago. If after that, if up 13 against the Rams with Jalen Hurts injured, and then up 6 when he called that bootleg play action rollout on 2nd and 7, and that resulted in a 12-yard sack, and all of a sudden Stafford's driving down the field, down 6, chance to steal the game, I think they might have gotten rid of him. Now instead, he's a game away from having the greatest start to a career any coach ever. I don't know what to make of it. Because every instinct I have says, well, this guy's just a doofus.
Same.
But you have, like, if any position should be judged based on their record, it should be head coach. And his record is historically good. So it really tests a lot of my beliefs of what should and what does work in the NFL. And so, this one, I mean, this offseason, they totally, what's the word that's always used in political Twitter? Defenestrated him, I think is the word. Yeah. They didn't even let him pick his own coordinators. You know what I mean? Early in the year, he's freaking out, yelling at his fans after a win. Even after the NFC Championship game, Jalen Hurts, it's like, coach finally let me out of my straitjacket. Like, that's a weird thing. So I don't know, but they haven't lost a game that Jalen started and finished in 4 months, and they're playing in the second Super Bowl in 2 years or in 3 years. So that one baffles me. That's my worst. I was basically perfect on my AFC preseason takes.
Same.
And I could not
predicting. It's become a very easy conference in the standings to predict.
And so I could not have been more wrong about the NFC. So I obviously famously had the Bears not only making the playoffs but winning the conference, but I also had the Eagles missing the playoffs. I had Washington finishing ahead of the Eagles, and my rationale was, man, something really weird happened last year to that team, and I don't trust this coach to pull them out of it. And I also thought Saquon Barkley would be good, but not great for them. But instead, Saquon had one of the greatest years any running backs had in the history of football.
Yeah, no, it's
I
Saquon something
really
else.
whiffed on the NFC stuff this year. I just
Well, I
got to
think it.
and even my gambling on the NFC was worse this year. I do think that there's probably a tax for me on being so dialed in on Kansas City that I
Well,
see the AFC a lot clearer than the NFC.
well, also in the last 11 years, if you count the Super Bowl, there's been 10 different quarterbacks from the NFC represented in the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts is the first in 11 years to do it twice. Like, you don't know who's going to win the NFC. I
Oh,
mean,
that's
you know.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you
and
know.
because all the Hall of Fame quarterbacks, except for the Packers quarterback, basically over a long period, I guess Breeze and Rodgers were the
Yeah.
two great NFC quarterbacks, and then all the other ones were in the AFC. Can I ask you a question?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Did I interrupt where you were going with it? I just
No,
thought
go.
about the
No,
quarterback.
please. We
Okay.
edit. We can do anything you
So
want.
let's, after this year, take this year out of it. This group of quarterbacks, the Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lamar, that group,
Yeah.
they're all 28, 29. Let's say, optimistically, they all have 10 more good years. That's
Yeah.
probably on the high end, but let's give them a decade. 10 more seasons, the 2025 season onward. Man, at least one of those guys is never making, much less winning a Super Bowl, like moving forward. So I know Joe's already made one. Because here's the way I was thinking about it. I'm like, okay, because everyone's like, do you think Josh will eventually get one? And intellectually, I'm like, yes, of course. He's the second best player in the league. Of course he'll get one. But then I'm like, well, wait a minute. Okay, so in the next 10 years, let's say Patrick slows down. He only makes 4 of the next
Or Andy
10.
Andy Reid retires.
Yeah, so let's just say let's say Patrick only makes 4 of the next 10. So there's 6. So that's 6 for Lamar, Josh, Joe. I know you've got Justin Herbert getting to one eventually. Bo Nix, CJ Stroud, and we're talking about 10 years. So there's
I'll
a
tell
whole
you.
couple more generations coming into the league. Like these guys, all of these guys being in the AFC is devastating for the resumes they're trying to build.
Well, and the one that's in trouble is Joe Burrow. The Bengals
Yes.
had to sell naming rights
To
to
pay.
the stadium to pay his contract. People don't understand this. The gentleman who, first of all, the Bengals don't have any money.
Right.
They don't have any money. It's just like the poorest ownership group. Joe Burrow knows it. They had to sell naming rights to a stadium to pay him. They started peeling off players even before they paid Jamar Chase. They're peeling off of them now.
Well, yeah, they haven't paid Jamar yet. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're already peeling off players. They are the opposite of the Eagles. They
Yes.
are anti risk and reward. They take no risks. Tobin, the general manager, has been there forever. Pleasant, very nice guy. Got no power. I mean, the Brown family runs the organization. They are essentially a AAA operation in Major League Baseball that happens to have Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow.
People make fun of the Raiders. The Raiders, because of some new ownership groups that have come in, are flush with cash. That's why they can pay 4 coaches and 3 general managers. They got nothing but money. Mark Davis has nothing but money, and the Raiders are a brand. And also it's Las Vegas. It's a growing city. There's real money there. No state tax. Very attractive place. Cincinnati, they got no money. Burrow, they'll never have a stacked roster. The only time to really be great with him was when he was on the rookie contract. When they pay Jamar Chase, they're out of money. Like Joe Burrow, I feel terrible for him. Joe Burrow would need to be superhuman. I mean, this year, he was as good as he's ever been. They couldn't make the playoffs. Herbert's going to get better with Harbaugh. Like, that's going to only get better.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, you're just
Herbert, I think Burrow's the one in trouble.
And here's the other concern for all those guys. Will they, maybe different for Joe because he's done it, but will those guys be able to play Patrick Mahomes, beat him, which is part of the hypothetical, and then psychologically be able to recenter and be like, that wasn't the Super Bowl. Not like we like that's the thing that I would worry about for the Bills. Not, I do think, listen, Mahomes is not going to go undefeated against Allen in his career in the playoffs. They will win. But man, if next year the Bills finally beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, it's going to be really hard to psychologically then reset and be like, actually, the next game's the tougher, bigger one. And so that's, we have never, I can't remember a time when it felt this disproportionate in quarterbacking talent conference to conference and what it's going to mean for these guys' kind of legacies when it comes to who they were as far as winning players or winning championships.
Everyone loves a good MVP story, and the story of Wasabi Technologies is one of the best. It's a purpose-built company to free businesses from skyrocketing storage costs and unpredictable egress fees from old and top-heavy legacy providers. You know, the big guys. Wasabi is the world's hottest cloud storage company, becoming the go-to provider for professional and collegiate sports teams and leagues around the world, and here's why. From Wasabi's AI-enabled intelligent media storage, Wasabi Air, to the industry's only cloud storage service with triple protection against cyber criminals, data deletion, and ransomware. Wasabi has taken the lead in driving innovation in data storage, eliminating overhead where it matters to deliver you results you can count on and won't break the bank. In fact, Wasabi's up to 80% less than those other guys and doesn't charge a cent for businesses to access their own data. You know, I love experimenting on podcasting. I like talking about stuff, where stuff is going and where it's headed. What I find interesting about where sports is going. So I think we both like this. So I grew up a baseball fan, but the sport, it's like what Democrats name, like Bill Maher will say, the Democratic Party is leaving me. I haven't changed. I was a baseball guy over a football guy when I was a kid. And then the sport just got slow and ponderous, and football was just better on television. And I've lived through TV. Like that's my life as a kid. I'm going to throw something at you that I think is going to happen, is that I think if you take out the NFL, that every other sport is dependent on where the best players play. And it does not help. For instance, college football got too Southern and too regional. Alabama, Georgia, Clemson. It hurt the sport. Michigan and Ohio State's emergence will help the sport over time. It will bring a big group. I'm a West Coast guy. I was a Big Ten, Pac-12 guy because of the Rose Bowl. So I'm more of a Big Ten guy than an SEC guy, although I can acknowledge the SEC is great. I think we're going to have a change here in the next 5 to 10 years in sports. And that is when the regional sports networks went away and Fox let them go. They were out of money an hour later. And those were vital to Pittsburgh's, Cincinnati, Oakland, Kansas City, Seattle. They were vital.
Sure.
The sport now is basically in the hands of the Dodgers, Steve Cohen, and I mean, I'm not sure the Yankees and the Steinbrenners can compete. Steinbrenners are saying they can't. What you're seeing now in baseball is all the riveting players play for the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Mets, or the Yankees. And I think we're going to have a renaissance in baseball, is that with these regional networks gone, there's not even forget the fake appearance that there's parity. There are like 4 kings at the top. Everything else is a pawn. Nothing else.
And you think that's good for the sport?
No. What I think it's good for is the primary weakness of baseball. It's television ratings. The attendance is fine. It's always dominated the summer. It has died on television. Last year's National League playoffs, it was like New York, LA, San Diego, and 8 of the best 13 players in the sport. And that we always think parity matters. No, it doesn't. The truth of the matter is, if the Celtics, Chicago Bulls, and the Lakers were great right now, the NBA would be in great shape. Oklahoma City is not good for the league. There is this belief. This is what I always say about Kansas City. Dynasties aren't bad. Great players on great brands are not bad for the league. I think we're going to have a renaissance. I think the Dodgers, Steve Cohen and the Mets, the Yankees, and maybe one other team will not be able to afford the best players. That's it. Philadelphia, maybe Phillies, because their attendance and their merchandising is so strong. I don't know about their TV, radio deals locally. Is that I think baseball has something the NBA doesn't. All their fascinating players. I mean, if I told you this, the 6 big TV products they have: Ohtani, Judge, Bryce Harper, Mookie Betts.
It's all the
Manny
same.
Machado, Tatis. They're all in these big glossy, favorable markets. There's my take, is that we're going to have a renaissance, that baseball is going to come storming back. It did in the postseason.
So I think this year is the most important year baseball's had in a very, very long time because of 2 things. And you kind of alluded to both of them. One is the momentum of last postseason, which is absolutely tremendous. And the other is the general angst and annoyance by the average fan towards the NBA.
Yeah.
I think that it is incumbent upon baseball to, and I don't have I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about this, so I don't even know exactly what I mean by this, but to seize this moment, because I agree with you. I mean, we did our show from the World Series. Now, that's because it was in New York, so it was easy to get to, but also because we were all so into it.
It was great.
It felt like such a cool event, and it was so lively and active, and it made me remember when I first started. It was shortly after when you first started. It was before I even had a show. We were doing our shows from the NBA Finals, even though they were not in LA. It was Warriors, Cavs every year. And we traveled to Cleveland to do our shows because it was such an event that I think baseball. So I was talking to a mutual friend of ours. I don't think he'll mind me saying this, so I'll quote him on it. Our friend Maverick. And he said that the media is moving towards an events model, where things have to feel like an event. And it's why, even though Mike Tyson's 60 years old and could barely get to the ring, that was huge. It felt, and the NFL, every game feels like an event. You'll have
the college football playoff.
College football
big.
playoff is exactly.
UFC feels big.
Is an event. And so that's really, really hard for baseball. So you know what? Because there's so many games. So finding ways, maybe it is via marketing their stars, to pick these benchmarks that are their events of the year or marquee matchups or games.
This is where Fox gets credit. They're the one that came up with the London game, the game in the cornfield. So
the Field of Dreams game, 100%. That felt big. That's an event. Like something cool like that makes it stand out from the noise of everything else. That's right.
Yeah, no, that was Fox. Fox management came and said, you guys need more big events. And they work, by the way. I watched the London games. They were cool. It felt special.
The Field of Dreams game is cool every year. It's just awesome. It looks cool. It's great.
Yeah, no, I think Maverick Carter's right on that. I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but I think you have to, it's easy to root for the Dodgers or the Chiefs. Like I have the Dodgers on throughout the summer in Los Angeles. Every other guy that comes to the bat is an all-star. It's like an all-star game. I mean, seriously, you get down to like Teoscar Hernandez is batting 5th, and you're like, Jesus, he just dominated the series in the Bronx. Like, everybody's great. The whole damn team is great. Like, I mean, they've got Tommy Edman batting 8th. He was like the NLCS MVP. You're like, it's an all-star team. So, and like the Chiefs, it's easy. I want to go back to the Chiefs on this because of your fandom and your loyalty and devotion to them. And I made this argument that I think I talked to an executive 2 weeks ago because I had said something on the air and he disagreed. He goes, there's this, because I called the Bills the Chiefs without the trophies.
Yeah.
And he goes, and this GM's team played both. And he said, the Chiefs got way better players. He said, Josh Allen's great. He said, and James Cook is a nice find. He said, but none of their receivers scare you. He says their defensive line doesn't have a dominant player. Russo, Ed Oliver, there are flashes. Ed Oliver gives you flashes. He said Kansas City's linebackers are better tacklers and faster. They've got the best corner. Chris Jones is unblockable and moves all over the line. And he said there's this feeling that Buffalo and Kansas City, and even Baltimore to a degree, it's just Mahomes is the difference.
No.
And he said, no, Kansas City's got 6 to 7 players that would start immediately for Buffalo over players perceived as really good players for Buffalo.
So I'll just, listen, I think Patrick, if you give him a chance, finds a way. And obviously Andy is, we've talked about it, might end up the greatest coach of all time. He's certainly now on the Mount Rushmore and moving up. But it's also, the margins are so thin in what makes a good team great and a great team legendary. So I'm just going to go to 2 seemingly innocuous draft day transactions that involve the Chiefs and the Bills. And I'm not...
and you're right with both of these. By the way, you're right with both of these.
So, yeah, and I'm not talking about the Chiefs trading with the Bills to get Mahomes. Set that aside.
Yeah.
In 2021, after the Chiefs trade, or 2022, Chiefs trade Tyreek Hill. They have the extra first-round pick. The New England Patriots are on the clock. The Bills are drafting right after them. The Chiefs need a corner. They're drafting later. The Bills need a corner. The Chiefs trade up with New England with the express purpose of getting ahead of Buffalo. They draft Trent McDuffie.
Great.
Who now is a 2-time All-Pro and, in my opinion, a top 4 corner in the entire NFL.
Well, University of Washington, I watched him 25 times in college.
Spectacular player.
Spectacular player.
Again, 2-time, not Pro Bowl, All-Pro after 3 years in the league. The Bills still need a corner. They got jumped. They take Kaiir Elam, who has been at the bottom of their roster since they took him. When he got put in the game because Benford got hurt on Sunday, Romo basically was like, well, they're in trouble. That happened in the draft. Last year in the draft, the Chiefs and the Bills both need a receiver. The Bills do not value Xavier Worthy because they, like a lot of people, by the way, think, 160 pounds. I don't know, man. The Chiefs want him because Patrick really, really wants him. The Bills want a big red zone target. They want Keon Coleman. He's going to be there later. So they're like, I think we were going to take Keon here anyway, probably. Might as well get the extra pick. Trade with Kansas City. Kansas City takes a receiver, Xavier Worthy. They take Keon Coleman. Man, you flip those 2 players in the AFC Championship game, Buffalo wins. If the Buffalo has Trent McDuffie and not Kaiir Elam, or Xavier Worthy at 100 yards and a touchdown, Keon Coleman had nothing.
Buffalo, I'd push back. Buffalo wouldn't use him like Andy Reid. Reid, because I was one of those, he's 160 pounds, he's a gadget guy, and he was in the first 2 months of the season.
Yep.
It's Andy's development of him if you go look at Rashee Rice, he came in, you're like, ugh.
And he was awesome by the end of the year.
People are. I talked to Andy Reid about this today on the show, or it'll be Wednesday if you're listening Thursday morning. I'm like, everybody thinks college and high school is development. I'm like, take me through the process of how you turn a gadget guy into a volume guy. And he just said, we asked him to do a bunch of stuff, and not all the players will do this. Xavier Worthy said yes to all the things we asked him to do. Because Xavier Worthy, I talked to people before the draft. I get a lot of my opinions, and they're like, he's a gadget guy. He's not a 12 target guy. and Andy made him that. So
Yes.
I don't think if Xavier Worthy, I don't think if he's in Buffalo, he ever becomes the Chiefs worthy.
That might be true. McDuffie, I think, is great anywhere. I think he's a great player. And so it's just the point I'm making is like it's really got to be the whole organization. Brett Veach it pulling in the same direction if you are trying to achieve something no team ever has, which is what they're trying to do.
This isn't a little itty-bitty, teeny-tiny bowl. It's the Super Bowl. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 59. Scoring touchdowns is the key to hoisting the Vince Lombardi Trophy, and you have a shot to score big by betting on them at DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. New DraftKings customers can bet just $5. That's it, $5 to get 200 in bonus bets instantly. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Takes 90 seconds max. Please use the code Colin, C-O-L-I-N. Use that code, C-O-L-I-N, for new customers. You're going to get $200 in bonus bets, and you'll get it instantly. All you have to do is bet $5. That's it. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. How about this? The Chiefs have made 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls.
Yes.
The Eagles and Niners, 2 each. The other 2 winners, Rams and Bucks. What do they have in common? Uber aggressive GMs. All make moves at the deadline. All trade up to the draft. Conservative teams like the Steelers and Packers, Bengals, in the end, in personnel, they can't keep up. Is that this is a real thing? Is that Veach, look at the trade-ups. Mahomes,
yes.
McDuffie. And this is why
Xavier
Joe Burrow
Worthy.
is screwed.
Yeah.
Look at Howie Roseman. I mean, everybody talks about the Saquon Barkley move. That wasn't even brilliant. That was an easy one.
Sure.
That was like, I could have made that move.
I mean, right. And I don't want to undersell it because, again, I underestimated Saquon. But the risky moves are, you bring up Howie. Listen, Howie Roseman said Jalen Carter might be the most talented player in this draft. He's falling because of the off-the-field issues with the car accident and the tragedy there. We want him. We think he's a superstar. We're going to trade up. They traded up with Chicago. Chicago had that pick, traded back. They take Jalen Carter. He's instantly, the best D tackle in the whole conference for them. Like, yeah, that's right. The things Les Snead did, Jason Light with the Bucks. It really, it's too hard to win championships in this league. Yes, you need to have a quarterback that kicks ass almost always. You also, though, need, the sharp head coach and the forward-thinking GM and the young players to develop. You gotta hit all of it in quick succession.
So I'm moving to Chicago here in the spring.
Have you? So
it's official.
I mean, it's official.
Yeah, I bought a house.
Well, I did see that you bought a house, but I didn't know if you had
it's
publicly.
official.
Is this you breaking the news?
No. First of all, it's. I figured you and I talk about this stuff, and so no. I mean, I told Fox 6 months ago, and Fox has been great. Fox has been.
I know Fox knows. I'm saying, is the audience finding this out from you for the first time right now?
I don't know if they are. I don't think they care because when you watch me on TV, you don't care where I'm at, do you?
So are you going to be, do you think full-time Chicago?
Yeah, 85%. I'll come and do a week during the football season in Los Angeles. I'll do a week. Like in September, I'll come out for a week, October, November, and the staff will build, we'll have a lot of live. But 90% of my guests, you're a great example. Of my 3 or 4 strongest guests that pop a rating, you're one of them. You're not live next to me. Joel Klatt is probably as strong as any guest I have because he is in studio and we go back and forth at each other. But the truth of the matter is Brady's been on, Drew Brees and Hasselbeck. They're not live.
Yeah,
You're not live. Cosell's not live.
Cosell,
Mangini's
I was
not
going to say,
live.
your film breakdown. Yeah.
No. So none of it's live.
Are you excited?
Or none of it's in studio. I am because I think my wife has given a lot to my career and sacrificed. I love Chicago. I've said my two favorite cities in the world are London and Chicago. I like LA. My wife doesn't like it as much. I like LA. It's kind of spread out for me. I kind of like the downtown area. I like Kensington, Paddington, in London. I like kind of urban areas where I can just walk all day long. In Los Angeles, I don't have that. Chicago, I can just walk downtown. I like that. I like Florence, Italy, London, Chicago. I like walking around a town. You can't do that in Houston, Atlanta, Los Angeles. LA is just too spread out. So I like where I live, but it lacks that sort of feel for me. And so I love the city. She's got her sister there. I've got a lot of friends there. And I think it's just time to help.
Well,
I think it's time to be
congratulations, man.
a better guy and be a
That's
better
and so
husband.
a number of things. One is that's touching that you're doing this for your wife, I think is fair to say. I think that's great. I think it is also exciting. You've never lived there, correct? So like I know you have an apartment there, like you spent time, but you've lived a lot of places, but you've
Yeah.
never had, where you spend the majority of your time be Chicago. So correct? Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
I've lived in 4 different homes in LA in 8 years, so I move a lot.
You move a
So
lot.
I do. I've lived in Connecticut. I've lived in Portland. I've lived in
Vegas.
Las Vegas. I've lived in Tampa. I live in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Now Chicago. You know what? I always said, Nick, I think it's an advantage as a broadcaster. I think it gives me a sense of every region. When I lived in Tampa, I motorsports, SEC football. I didn't know the passion. It's like, wow, for 2 years, I really learned what people care about. I look at it, and first of all, Chicago. Chicago is one of the great guy cities ever. Great bars, great steaks, great sports,
yeah.
great beach. It's just incredible.
I mean, yeah, you're breaking our dear friend Danny Parkins' heart because I saw the article. Because listen, you're big time when you buy a house and it's a news story. It's like, wow, famous broadcaster Colin Cowherd.
I
buys
hate
his
that
house.
so much.
And that I know you hate it, but it cracks me up. But because of that, not only did I know you bought a house, but I know where it is. It's like 6 minutes from where Parkins used to live. And now Danny moved to Chicago. You and him still, I don't think, have ever met in person. You guys are going to be in person together for the first time ever at the Super Bowl. But it also means if you're in Chicago, you're going to be in New York more often because you don't come to New York ever. And
Right.
I'm now it's a short enough flight. I can guilt you into it. Yeah,
Right.
Our wives who have spent no time together can get
Right.
together. We can go to Broadway. Have I told you this about me? That the oddest thing that happened with me moving to New York is I found out I absolutely love Broadway.
You
And
should.
when I say love Broadway, I mean like I've seen Wicked 4 times. I see all the shows. I don't care how it sounds. I know people. Here's the thing. When I got to New York, I'm like a musical. That sounds terrible.
Right.
And then you go and it's like, oh, this is really like having courtside seats to the NBA in that
Yeah.
you're this close and these are the best in the world at what they do,
Yeah.
performing live. And so that's like the food in Broadway or what I love about New York more than anything. But so you'll be a little closer. That's exciting. Congratulations.
what?
It also means FS1 is now like we're everywhere. We're in New York, Chicago, LA.
That was
Need a
that was my
foothold in
pitch.
Denver or something. I don't know.
No, that was my pitch. I said, Fox News, nobody's in New York. And they're all over the country. Why does FS1 have to all be in LA? And my take was, we don't have a show in the middle of the country. Why not?
Yeah, that was your pitch.
Yeah, my
I thought
pitch
the
was,
pitch was probably like, this is really what I want to do, and you guys, I'm an important, good employee. You should probably.
no, I
figure
didn't
it
say that. No,
Well, that's
when I-
exciting, man. I'm really happy for you. You've been talking about this for a while. And so I'm
Yes.
really happy that's finally happening.
Yeah, so I guess I am announcing it. It is and for the record, my employers have both been amazing. They've both said, "What do you want? We'll build you a studio." So the thing about Fox Sports, I don't know, there's an ownership position with the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So not to bore people with it, but there's certain things in television called fibers. And because Fox and the Big Ten building and the Fox LA building have similar or share fibers, it's a really easy transition.
Oh,
So,
okay. I
yeah,
didn't.
so it's
I for the record, so the audience doesn't feel out of the loop. I have no idea what these fibers are, so I didn't know what you just said. I didn't know. The audience didn't know. I didn't know. But yeah, no, I did figure when you were first bringing this up, I didn't know exactly how you're going to pull it off. But I assumed Chicago was easier than if you're like, guys, my wife desperately wants to live in St. Louis. Let's figure it out. Like Chicago's a huge city. The Big Ten's there. Do you think you'll go to more college football games being right there?
well, I'm already a Bulls and Blackhawks season ticket
Yep.
holder, so I bought season tickets there. I bought a suite at the basketball arena. So I go to, so I told Ann, if I said, we're going to move to Chicago, and just to show you my commitment to you in the city, we're going to go to stuff a lot. So every time we go, I mean, every other night we go to an event, we go to a place downtown, we'll go watch music, do whatever we do. So, and I got to tell you something, you know how you said you've discovered that you love Broadway, and Broadway's amazing.
Yeah.
I have found that, I I love going to Europe. I made a promise to my wife. I said the next 20 years, we're going to go minimum once a year. I love that. And I got to be honest with you, Nick, you know what I really love? I like going out at night. I never thought I was go out at night guy. If I could go out every single night, every goddamn night, I would.
That's
Love.
remarkable. All right, so I wouldn't have thought that either, because I'm not as much the club guy as I used to be. But
I'm
listen,
not talking clubs.
I know you're not. I'm talking about me. But I met my wife. She was a club promoter. Is how we met, and so she and I used to go out all the time to clubs. Now we're more the very late dinners. Like last night, we had a night. It was a Tuesday, whatever last night was. We had a 9:00 dinner reservation, some Italian place in New York. So I totally get that. So here's an added benefit, whether you're thinking about it or not. Even though your show's on at the same time, for you, it's 2 hours later.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So you will be able to, stay up later and, do more stuff. So here's the deal. Post Super Bowl, this is what I am foisting on you, but also committing to you. My wife and I will come to Chicago and we will all hang out. We will, because that's an easy flight. I want to see the house. So Danielle and I, post Super Bowl, sometime once you guys are settled, we'll come spend a weekend in Chicago.
You will. Chicago is such, I've lived in two cities in the country that get a bad rap and are both pretty amazing. Los Angeles is really full of unbelievable people. And secondly, Chicago. Chicago is such a cool town. The architecture, the people. I still don't think they've totally recovered from COVID. I think Michigan Avenue feels a little less active than it was, but I don't know it well enough to have big, strong opinions. I don't know how New York feels. I think COVID beat up some Midwest towns more than others. But I think people, McIntyre's always like, oh, it's cold. I'm like, dude, they're called coats. I can't take, like, you lived in Houston. I couldn't take that heat. I can take cold. I grew up in Seattle. It's wet.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the winters in Chicago weather-wise are rough, but there's a trade-off to everything. And so I agree with you on that. There are certain cities that become just avatars for political points people are trying to make.
Yes.
And so like San Francisco has become one in certain ways. Chicago forever has been one. And because of that, it has gotten, listen, it's one of the, just objectively, one of America's finest cities. And if you're one of America's finest cities, not to sound all uber patriotic, you're one of the finest cities in the world. And so, and if you're a big, obviously, like, you want to spend more time going to Europe, it's not the biggest difference in the world, but it is a considerably easier flight. Like Chicago there from LA there is a difference. It's why, like, my wife, we spent last year after the Super Bowl, we went to Tokyo and then went to Tokyo South in Japan. And I truly think it was the greatest trip my wife's ever been on. She loved it so much. It just feels almost prohibitive because it's like, man, it's 6 hours flying and you're still in the US. Like from New York there, like it is a brutal, and Europe's so easy from here. So that's great, man. And I'm glad, I'm honored. You announced it with me. This is gonna, the trades are gonna have a big field day with this.
Oh, are they?
Broadcaster Colin Cowherd moving to Chicago. Also, by the way, sweet little kind of flex on I already have a suite at the United Center. My goodness gracious.
Well,
man.
that was my wife. I promised my wife, I said, because she said, you're never going to leave LA. You love LA. And I said, no, I have friends. I love my little clubs I go to, my little places with my buddies, my buddy David Slay, who owns restaurants in Manhattan Beach. I love the people. And I do think the weather is nice. Although I will tell you, where I live is by the water. It gets cold in LA in the winter a lot. My car was 41 degrees when I pulled out this morning.
Yeah, I wouldn't that's not an art. You say that, and people in Chicago are like, my car literally froze. They're like, nobody wants to hear the 41 degrees. But listen, you're entering it. That's great.
Yeah, and I told Ann, I said, I'm going to commit to the city. I'm going to commit to tickets, and we're going to go to events and comedy shows. We've seen John Mulaney and Sebastian Maniscalco, and we're going to go to anybody that's in town. And I love the people. And, it's funny, the life I've lived, not to bore people, but it's a trade-off. It would be awesome to live on the same street for 45 years and literally know my kids would have stories that, they hung out with the Hamiltons across the street. I think that's awesome. I've followed commerce. I've bounced all over the country, and there's some advantages and disadvantages to it. But I'm so excited to live in the Midwest, to live in a great city next to cousins. I'm fired up, and my son wants to go
congratulations, man.
Northwestern here in a couple of years, maybe. So
that's awesome. Well, congratulations. You deserve it, and it's fantastic. I could think of no better way to. Go ahead.
You're a Kansas City kid. You've lived in New York. It's been an amazing experience.
Oh yeah, and no, I've lived Kansas City, Houston, Los Angeles, New York. I've lived, geographically never SEC and never Pacific Northwest, but everywhere else I feel like I kind of have a feel for. I think it's one of the cool parts about the job is being able to have lived different places. I think, and then I know we have to go. I think the next place I'll live is Vegas. I think that because my wife wants to open a store in Vegas, and I obviously have, a lot of connections to poker and stuff. And so I think that I'll do, my youngest is in 6th grade. And so I plan to be in New York for the bulk of, if not the entirety of my 40s. But if I were to leave New York, I think Vegas is is the place I think I would go next.
Well, I lived there for 7 years. I lived there when there was still mobsters, remnants of mobsters. It's a very corporate town. It's an incredible food city. Incredible.
And it's even gotten better. Yeah, all the restaurants are there now because of the casinos.
Nick Wright, good seeing you, buddy. I love having you on as always, and this is going to become a more regular thing.
Absolutely. Congrats, man. Talk to you soon. See you, Colin.
All right.
No matter the dress code, the Tristan shoes fit the bill. Designed with breakthrough step-activated technology for hands-free comfort, you can step in and step out of these shoes with ease. Made with advanced comfort and flexibility, a built-in molded heel provides a secure fit that holds your foot in place, finished with a lightweight yet durable EVA outsole. The Tristans have become my go-to for game day.